Welcome to a new chapter of the series. Because I had somehow got my mic set to mute, I lost the audio, so I am having to record it again. In this part, I was talking in that we were going to see the two deals that I have done during the winter transfer window. One that is coming already and another that is for the next season. Danny Ings is the player that has been agreed a contract with for the next season. Initially, I hoped to bring him already in exchange of Gianpaolo Pazzini, but my first bid was rejected. Then I offered a contract already. Then a second transfer when he said he was angry after I had already offered him the contract, and then left it at that to see what happens. And as it happens, he accepted the contract to come next season. And the one who's coming already is Joaquin Larribey. That is going rather well, with 3 goals from 4 matches, and 2 in the first match he played, another in the 4th match he played. And overall a very good average rating. Here you can see that he scored against Lazio in our 4-2 defeat against them, and then against Sassuolo in our 3-0 win. And that we were sent out of the cup by Sampdoria, which should not have happened perhaps, but we couldn't do any better to open up their defense as it happened against Torino. And here you see that we drew against Cagliari in our first match against them, which is something that I would be mentioning in a later moment of the video. And in the middle of the season, when we were about to play again against Napoli to show the differences to the previous match that we started the series with, we are sitting in 7th position, which is not very good, but we are only 4 points behind second placed Inter, 2 points behind third placed Lazio, and 2 points behind 4th, 5th and 6th teams, which is not that bad in reality. Now when it came to choosing the side, I decided, I was showing here that we did only minimal changes to the formations used, and that I had not made any individual instructions, and that it may be the reason that in the YouTube series I tend not to do that good, except for that Sporting de Gijón save, because I want to make videos in a decent frequency, at least once a week, and that makes me wanting to play it faster, as I don't give him as much time as I give to my main save, so I don't get to look at the tactics as in depth as I tend to do in my normal games. Not that I am usually looking at an extensive depth of my tactics, but more than I do in this YouTube series. And this is the part where I ended the fraction that was going to be the comment previous to the match that was meant to be a post-commentary attempt. And here is the selection of the squad, where you can see what was the team that I was going for with. Keisuke Honda, Suleiman Tari, and someone else that I don't remember were out of the selection because they are out in international duty and they've been away for a while now, so I couldn't get them in. That meant that I had not many choices for the center midfielder with that formation because I don't have that many, but finally I went for this formation with Montolivo and Andrea Poli as creative forces in the midfield. Jacob as the more defensive style of midfielder, and Saponara to play as a solo striker, while Joaquin Larribey was going to be the target man to drop back trying to attract enemy defenders and create spaces for the other two that are alongside him, with Armero and De Siglio tasked with making space for them. Then here I saw what were the pace and acceleration of the wingers to set the proper individual instructions that I wanted for them, and saying that neither of them were extremely fast, being fast, I decided to set the positions to closing down always and nothing more. I decided that the recommendation by the assistant was good enough and I didn't want to do much more, but I wanted to make some tactical changes, but after submitting the team so that I didn't have to repeat those changes afterwards, or under them rather. So I set out to make the formation not as offensive, moving the player wider and passing higher up, as well as the shorter passing, and retaining the close down mode, and as well as removing from positions. So I wanted the team to be a little more disciplined, but not that much. I decided to leave things incomprehensive to see better of the match and play better with it. So in the first game, nothing much was seen. And there came just a free kick that was not much. In here, nothing much to say except that De Siglio found all that space there with a Napoli side that was quite replicated, I think is the word. Very behind themselves, very much deep, rather. And here is a play where you can see that nobody tried to use that gap between defense and midfield, and Insigne had to drop back to try look for space, which was one thing to not be changing the defensive depth. I like there that Larribey had tried to head the ball off to his teammate, though in that situation with so crowded maybe it was not the best choice. Insigne, who is their striker and most forward man, started that run in my midfield layer, which is interesting. Meaning I maybe could consider passing higher up, but I didn't want to risk that too much. And since I judged that was not especially threatening, it was better to not press the luck. Even more, I considered that because there was not a clear attempt to set a player from the midfield in the space between my defense and my midfield. Even it could be advisable to drop deeper to lure Insigne to be more higher up the pitch for them and therefore more isolated from the rest of the team. But my opinion was that he was already isolated enough, so I left things as they were. You can see more clearly here that there's no rival player in that pocket, though just before that foul, a couple of them seemed to be dancing into that space. Those runs that were in that attack previous to this seemed well defended. And here came the goal. I paused to make some tactical changes before the kick-off so they would be applied immediately. But then started to consider that things were not going bad. I didn't really need any change to be done since they were quite well contained and there were no threats created by them. So instead of making some changes that might upset that balance in my favor, I decided to let things be and wait for them to show what were the changes they were doing. Here again the Siglio finds himself with plenty of room to attack and he makes a decent cross for Saponara. Here, if you had seen before, Christian Macchio was on a yellow card and the body language suggested that he was feeling frustrated. So since I had no trouble with yellow cards, I decided to tackle him hard to see if his frustration turned him to be more aggressive on those tackles and get him with tackling him hard, and that might him to earn the second yellow card. The long ball to the striker that was completely isolated. I changed to extended in order to reduce the file size of the certain videos since I had seen enough that after the goal they were still not threatening. Here a second ball over the top that this time managed to find the net. The Sarawi who has started to perform well since December when I began to use him in this striker position of the 4-3-1-2. By now Macchio was in body language composed, so I could have removed the circle hard by now, but as you can see I didn't. I may cut a bit of the action to reduce the time, but not this good chance that it was almost a third goal. More than half an hour and they only managed one shot off target. They had more of the ball, but they did nothing with it. And again everybody is on furious or frustrated moods. Here I was checking who was the second player that had earned a yellow card to see if I tackled him hard, but I didn't want to tackle the defender. Because I didn't want to risk a penalty during a set piece. And since now I got a yellow card to Jacob, who plays in the side of Mario and could have been tackling Mario hard, I decided to avoid the risk to getting a red card in my team instead of theirs, so I removed the instruction. And so I reached the half time. And I thought that the best was to tell them not to get complacent. So I chose that option, and it made them to kind of focus, and in the case of Napoli to be motivated. I thought Larry Veggie was not playing good, because he wasn't playing good. I began to think that perhaps keeping the Silvio with the yellow card there may be an issue or a risk, but I decided to take it. And for the moment I kept the Silvio in the game. A good tackle there, and a chance that was well created, but ended in nothing thanks to the good work of Diego Lopez. And by now, after 15 minutes, you see that they started to get shots. And time was passing without anybody creating anything. Until this good chance that the keeper managed to save well. If things are working, why change them? There's no need to be doing any substitution at the 60th minute. I think that was the crossbar that saved them from the third goal. There's one good work hit. And they kept their defensive formation, even though we were 2 up. Here, with 1/4 of an hour to go, I decided to protect me against possible second yellow cards and took away the 2 players that were with yellow card in defense, and left Jacob to avoid any possibility of injuries, making me be with 10 men. And still nothing was happening, because we had the game under control, and then in the last very few minutes I made a change with the intention of simply wasting some time. Nobody between defense and midfield again, And the one midfielder that they seemed to have a little more advanced than the rest was well marked by Jacob. And this is just a meaningless highlight, except for the part that they made a fall in a dangerous area, but the free kick came to nothing. And this was just waiting for a stop by, I think, to whistle for the end of the match. And here I consider that perhaps I should be a little harsh and let them not to be complacent, but in the end I thought we didn't seem to have a very good form lately, and I thought to try to raise their morale and don't risk him, get them getting depressed or angry, because I told them they had to keep focusing next matches. They got to look extremely delighted, but I'm not sure it's very good as it means. Things got to their heads, the prize got to their heads. And that set us in 5th position with only 2 points behind the 3rd and 4th and 3 points behind second placed teams. A wide interest between the Juventus and Cagliari game. That was what I was mentioning before, because if they drew, I had all the probabilities to be the 5th after a triple draw with those teams. In the end, Juventus defeated Cagliari by a 4-0, and we dropped to 6th position, and Juventus up to 3rd position, tied with Fiorentina and Inter. And that is everything for today. Thanks for watching. Like, comment and subscribe if you feel like that, or don't if you don't.